There is a kind of man this world has forgotten, a man who is not moved by trends or validation, a man who owns himself in a world that constantly tries to own him. This man is rare, not because he hides, but because he refuses to sell his soul for comfort or approval. He stands where others bow. He listens when others shout. He guards what others waste. He is the Unfable man. Before we continue, take a moment to join the Telegram channel. The link is in the description below. That is where we go deeper into topics that cannot be spoken freely here. Now understand this. We live in a codependent world, a world where almost every human interaction is built on subtle need. People need validation, attention, energy, and approval. Entire relationships are built not on love, but on emotional dependency. Men are taught to give away their strength in exchange for comfort, to drain their will for a brief sense of belonging. This silent dependency has weakened the masculine essence. But there is a way out. It begins with reclaiming the one force that the world taught men to waste their creative energy. Retention, when understood correctly, is not about repression. It is about reclamation. It is the act of saying, I own myself. My desires do not own me. That single declaration shifts the entire energetic structure of a man's being. Every time a man releases without awareness, he loses more than fluid. He loses charge. He loses his center. The mind becomes restless. The heart becomes an ink. The will loses its sharpness. This is how men become trapped in cycles of pleasure and guilt, chasing highs that only deepen emptiness. Retention interrupts this loop. It forces the man to face himself. When a man decides to retain, he no longer has an escape route. Every urge, every impulse, every hidden emotion comes to the surface. This is where real power begins. Power does not come from control over others, but from control over self. The man who can sit still while the storm of desire moves through him is the man who has touched the roots of mastery. In a codependent society, most people are emotional parasites without even realizing it. They feed on each other's attention. They seek constant stimulation because silence terrifies them. But the man who practices retention begins to enjoy his own company. His energy no longer leaks out through constant seeking. His presence becomes his home. This alone separates him from the crowd. Self-ownership is not just about holding energy. It is about building a fortress around your consciousness. Every man who retains long enough will notice the same shift. His thoughts become clearer. His words gain weight. People start reacting differently to him, not because he is louder, but because he carries himself with invisible gravity. His very silence begins to speak. But the deeper truth is this: the modern world thrives on addiction. It does not want men to be sovereign. A cell-phone man cannot be manipulated through lust, advertising, or fear. His attention is too expensive to sell. His energy is too sacred to waste. That is why this path is not popular. It is not convenient. It demands rebellion against the collective hypnosis that keeps men weak. When a man begins this journey, he will feel resistance from everywhere. The mind will fight him. The body will tempt him. The world will mock him. Friends will say he is taking it too seriously. But the deeper reason behind all this resistance is that the system cannot digest cell-phoned men. The moment a man begins to master his desires, he breaks the invisible chains that keep society functioning through distraction. Retention becomes a silent revolution, not one of protest, but of presence. Every drop withheld with awareness becomes a statement. I am not a slave to my impulses. The man who reaches this understanding realizes that pleasure is not the goal. Power is not the goal. Ownership is the goal. Ownership of thought, emotion, time, and energy. Most men chase success while leaking the very essence that could make them successful. They run after women, money, or status, never realizing that all of those are mirrors reflecting their own scattered energy. But the man who retains learns a different way. He does not chase. He attracts. He does not perform. Emanatis. He no longer competes with others because he has begun to compete with his former self. Semen retention, in this context, is not just a spiritual practice. It is the ultimate declaration of self-possession in a codependent age. It is the act of unplugging from the matrix of need. It is the rediscovery of the masculine nucleus that cannot be seduced or bought. The man who owns his seed owns his soul. There is a hidden beauty in restraint. Modern culture calls it suppression, but true restraint is liberation. When a man channels his raw desire into creation, he transforms hunger into vision. That is why many great thinkers, warriors, and mystics spoke about conserving energy. They knew that what others waste in pleasure, the wise man uses to build empires, inner or outer. The unfabled man is not emotionless. He feels deeply, but acts deliberately. His power lies in the gap between impulse and action. That gap is where the soul breathes. Retention expands that gap. It gives him time to respond instead of react. In that space, he finds freedom. Yet, it would be dishonest to pretend this path is easy. It will test everything inside you. The first weeks feel like fire. The mind will rebel. The body will crave release. The emotions will oscillate between pride and despair. But every test is a mirror. Every challenge is refining your will. If you can endure the discomfort, you will awaken a strength that no pleasure can give. This is not about hating women or renouncing life. It is about transcending addiction. Once a man has mastered his desire, he can love more deeply and purely. His relationships become based on strength, not need. He no longer gives energy to prove his worth. He gives because he chooses to, not because he must. That choice transforms everything. The codependent man gives to be loved. The self-owned man gives because he is love. He no longer demands energy from others because his own cup overflows. That is the shift Semen retention triggers. It turns dependency into wholeness. It replaces desperation with calm authority. The world often praises vulnerability but confuses it with weakness. True vulnerability comes from strength. The man who owns himself can open up without losing his center. He can care without collapsing. He can stand alone and still be connected. This is what makes him unfable, a mystery that cannot be simplified or categorized. You see, being unfabled means being unexplainable by modern logic. The man who has mastered himself becomes unpredictable because he is no longer ruled by external forces. He acts from inner alignment, not outer pressure. That kind of man cannot be marketed to, manipulated, or used, and that is why such men are feared, admired, and sometimes even hated. Semen retention becomes the gateway to that inner independence. It is not a superstition. It is a science of energy management and consciousness expansion. Every time you hold that energy, you are declaring that your life force belongs to your mission, not your momentary craving. The codependent world tells men to express themselves without restraint. But true expression requires direction. Power without control destroys. Energy without ownership leaks. The unfable man learns to channel rather than release. He uses that pressure as fuel. He understands that desire, when mastered, becomes vision. Lust, when purified, becomes love. Pleasure, when transcended, becomes purpose. It all begins with a choice. A simple decision to stop giving away the most powerful force you possess. From that moment, life starts to change. You think clearer. You sleep deeper. Your eyes gain intensity. Your posture shifts. People feel something different around you, even if they cannot name it. That something is sovereignty. In a codependent world, sovereignty is the rarest luxury. It cannot be bought. It must be built, breath by breath, choice by choice. Every moment you choose awareness over impulse, you strengthen your inner foundation. That foundation becomes your throne. And from that throne, you rule yourself before ruling anything else. Retention is not about counting days. It is about counting victories over your own mind. Every time you say no to a fleeting urge, you say yes to your higher purpose. You reclaim the parts of yourself that were lost to indulgence. Slowly, the noise fades. What remains is silence, clarity, and confidence that no one can give or take away. The unfabled man is not against the world. He is beyond it. He participates, but he is not possessed. He loves, but he does not cling. He walks among men, but his gaze is elsewhere. fixed on a higher truth that cannot be corrupted. That truth is simple. You are not your desire. You are the awareness behind it. So hold your energy, not with fear, but with reverence. Let it build within you until your very presence becomes power. Walk with the quiet authority of someone who no longer needs the world's permission to exist. That is freedom. That is the essence of the Unfable man. If you have reached this far, you are already walking the path. Keep going. Protect your focus. Guard your energy. Refine your will. The world does not need more followers. It needs men who have reclaimed themselves from the inside out. If this message resonated with you, contribute using the thanks button below. Every contribution, no matter how small, is deeply appreciated. It helps keep this message alive and independent. Own your energy, own your mind, own your destiny. Be the Unfable man.